What's up, everybody? Richard Dolan here for a courageous conversation.
Well, man, today you're right. There's no going back.
How do you feel the weight of that desire?
I have been there for a while.
Story's still being written, and you cut the story short. As they say, I'm playing with house money.
They said, neo-fascist.
You can't imagine, Richard. I've heard everything now.
But I'll tell you what, you ain't never buying your time back. Value your time.
Once you start a courageous conversation, there ain't ever going back to an ordinary one.
By the way, not to break the circle of conversation, but just maybe a fun fact, but I'm personally curious. I'm a fan of Marley Coffee, your brainchild.
Yes.
I mean, it's done phenomenally well, commercially successful. But when you look at the seeds that you use, the coffee beans you use, there's a good portion of them that are Ethiopian beans.
Absolutely.
Given what you just said about being connected to the motherland, and telling us a bit about why it's important to connect through our own history and being through plant, was that on purpose?
Yes, because my land is in Jamaica and I have 52 acres. And with 52 acres, you can only do so much. First of all, I don't have the bandwidth to be able to get all the amount of product that's necessary for me to get an export license. That in itself hindered me in Jamaica to be able to grow as an entrepreneur. I couldn't get the export license. My life is kind of like I failed at what I really wanted to do after life, after college ball. So I was in Jamaica, and when I realized all the red tapes in Jamaica, I realized that, I have a coffee farm. It's not free to just have a farm and just package it and sell it. You need to go through all these regulations. Obviously you do, but that's just how, you keep a certain standard, which is like the coffee industry board, So, but to have that standard, and again, I was one of the first coffee farmers to become certified organic. So to have that standard and to enter a place that's been around for hundreds of years in Jamaica, it's a great big industry in Jamaica. And for me, as a Marley, to fit into that societal movement, it wasn't so accepted at the time. So I had to find a way to make it work. I left Jamaica. I moved to Miami. Then after Miami, I moved to Los Angeles. I wanted to, play soccer was one of my things. So I wanted to try for the LA Galaxy, but I also went there for business. I was supposed to start the Tough Brown Clothing. And, my brother Ziggy, instrumental. So anyway, I feel that I started it, ran out of money because I took the family's money, but my partner was taking too much money, ran out of money. At the time, I didn't know how to raise money, even though I had the brand in 75 stores throughout Canada, etc. Failed. Family didn't want to put any more money until the other guy decided to take a pay cut. He wouldn't do that. Well, it didn't work. I told him I had to stop. So I said, you know what? Since I failed at life and everything, I told my family, I'm moving to Africa. So I moved to Ethiopia for several different reasons. It was the millennium that year on the Ethiopian calendar, the year 2000, which in my view is the year of the return of the Christ, but it's a Christ energy, the Christ consciousness. It's an awakening. It's many different forms, But I wanted to be there in the birthplace because in my early times, when I would read the books I read in the early days, it told me that Ethiopia was where the gods like to descend on, ascend and descend. There's a point. It's the highest point in on the highest land in the world. So they ascend and descend there. So I wanted to be there, and it's also told me it's where the gods like to be in Ethiopia. So I went there for that, and plus it was the millennium. While I'm there, a man said to me, "Hey, Rohan, what are you doing here?" I said, "What you mean? I came home." He says, "No, you're Bob Marley's son. Do you sing?" I said, "No, I don't sing, but I have a coffee farm." So when he said that to me, he said, "Oh, do you know that Ethiopia is the birthplace of coffee?" And then when the Arabs would go to Ethiopia and take the coffee back to Yemen, the Europeans bought the coffee from the Yemenites. And they said, "Oh, we have the beans from the Arabs." So it became Arabica. So that was my point. My point in life was to tell the world that my mission that I wanted as an entrepreneur, as a coffee guy, was to tell the world that Ethiopia is the birthplace of coffee. And the rightful name for the beans are Ethiopica, not Arabica. So that was one of my missions. So that's really that. And also, it was like was told for me because 7 years prior to that, I went to a monastery. There was a coffee tree on the monastery. The Batawe was an Ethiopian hermit, a monk. I was with him. He's a good friend of mine. He's the one that teaches me how to pray and all these things. So I'm with him. He picks a cherry from the tree off the monastery, gave it to me, and told me that was going to be my future business, my future life. I was in the year 2000 on the Gregorian calendar, right? 7 years prior to when I went again. So 7 years later, I go there to the year 2000 on the Ethiopian calendar. So there's a 7-year difference. So the monk, he sends me back to the same monastery. I go to the monastery, and while I'm on this monastery, the monastery at the time, the monks there, they're processing the coffee on a barbecue. So I said, okay, I took a picture. I said, I asked the monk, I said, I thought the church didn't deal with coffee. He says, well, you see the roof has a leak. The monks need clothes, the people need food. We have coffee, we trade coffee. So I said, oh, the church do business. I said, okay, I understand. I said, well, okay, that was my number 2 signal. I go back to Addis Ababa, here on the radio that the Ethiopian government has banned Starbucks from buying coffee. I said, Starbucks buys coffee. I said, what do you mean Starbucks buys coffee? I said, yeah, they buy coffee from all over. I said, really? I said, well, geesh, they don't own a coffee farm? I own a coffee farm. I said, well, you know what? If they can source coffee, I can source coffee too. I don't want a coffee business. I called the guy that was interested in putting 100,000. This when I was trying to figure out how to raise money, couldn't go to the family. I called the guy that was interested in raising $100,000. I said to him, I said, hey, I said, do you know who my father is? He says, yes, Bob Marley. I said, yes. And you know that my father is a universal man. I said, do you know that I am also universal? He said, what are you trying to say, Roman? What the fuck are you trying to say? I said, 1 second. I said, do you know that coffee is universal? And here's what we're going to do. We're not having a Jamaican company. We're going to build a coffee company. And it's going to be called Marley Coffee. And we're going to source our coffee from Ethiopia. Why? Ethiopia, the birthplace of civilization. Ethiopia, the birthplace of Rastafari. Ethiopia, the birthplace of Haile Selassie. Ethiopia, the birthplace of coffee. So I did that and connected my family legacy to its roots, which is really Ethiopia. So we named our first coffee before I could sell my coffee on the land in Jamaica. I named my first single origin sourced coffee from Ethiopia, One Love, because it's a single origin and it's Ethiopia, One Love. Then I named my espresso Lively Up. I named my decaf Simmer Down. I named my dark roast Get Up, Stand Up, stuff like that. And then finally, after I did that, I went back to my land in Jamaica because when I promised those farmers that I was going to build a coffee business, they just didn't know how. But I went to show them that I did it. And when I went to the Jamaican government, they banned me from bringing coffee into the country. The coffee board, they said I'm not allowed because it's because of tariff laws or whatever. I only had 4 bags with me, but they put me on the gleaner. So when they banned me from bringing coffee, I found the Indian guy down there, his name is Bron Baswani. And because I know if I walked in, they're going to deny me, I had him become the face. I made a partnership with Lennox Lewis, the boxer. I know they won't deny him. They love him so much. I partnered with the Sharks brothers, who already had 6,000. They already had all the license to export and import, roasting facility, processing plant. Partnered with them and my friend Bali, and I created Marley Coffee Jamaica and started a Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee business alongside what I did in Ethiopia. So I was able to accomplish that. But I had to first prove myself. Without them, I would go to in front of Air One in LA and stand in front with a AirPod and pour coffee. Please, hi, good afternoon, good morning. Hi, my name is Rohan Marley. Would you like to try some coffee? And I did that, serving thousands of people with my hands. Please try my coffee. Hi, I'd like to tell you more about my coffee. I can find this it's from Jamaica. This one's Jamaican. This one's from Ethiopia. And I went on and on all day long talking about coffee and my experience in coffee. So I landed 5 Whole Foods in California. And I landed also Dean and DeLuca in New York. So those are my 2 staples. So I would say I'm in Dean and DeLuca and Whole Foods. So I was the first guy to bring coffee, or Jamaican coffee into Whole Foods. First guy to bring Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee into Union DeLuca, roasted package from Jamaica. And I was one of the first guys to sell roasted package product from Jamaica, Blue Mountain coffee, here in some of the supermarkets. Took it from $3,000 first year to $13 million by the fourth year. So that was Marley Coffee.
Man, you've got your own redemption song.
Yeah.